I was extremely angry, but that was sadness manifesting as an emotion that's easier to express. It was much more deep-rooted. So we worked on a lot of self-hatred and frustration with the world.
Hello and welcome to the Menfulness podcast. It's me, your host, Sam Watling. Thank you for being here, as always, as we try to get beneath the surface of what men are really going through and why we're not talking about it more. And perhaps most importantly, what we're going to do to proceed. First of all, for some good news, we are the proud winners of a York Press Community Pride Award. We took home the Best Community Project, and honestly, we're blown away to even be nominated, getting to sit in that room and meet so many incredible people, causes, just some of the stuff that's going on in this city. It made us very, very proud to be there. And when we got the award, the presenter asked us what it meant to us, and we accepted it on behalf of all the volunteers and all the members who make this possible. We get as much as anybody else from this thing that we're trying to do, and we do recognise how special it is, and it seems like other people are catching on too. So thank you all so much for your support by listening to this podcast, by talking about us, by telling your friends about us, by checking in on your mates and seeing how they are. You contribute to what we're trying to do. So thank you. And thank you to York Press and to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation who awarded us as well. Now, before we get on to today's episode with Leo, some feedback from Adam about Issa's story. Just finishing listening to Issa's story, he speaks so fluently about his experiences and in a second language too. The emphasis he puts on the cultural heritage of a building as something that encompasses all of the changes made to it over its history is quite profound. Like our faults and bad experiences also make us who we are. I love the metaphor of Menfulness being like planting a tree and the birds who need it will come. Thanks, Adam. Totally agree, mate. Just what a brilliant, genuine bloke Issa is, and how his early life and his work impact the person and his perspective on the world was just fascinating. So please, if you haven't listened to it yet, go and check it out. Issa's story is available now. Don't forget the merch store is still live too, and you can still get free shipping right now with the code FREESHIPCHEMISTRY. All one word, capital letters, FREESHIPCHEMISTRY. I'm informed the button to get to the merch store doesn't appear on our main page if you're viewing it on a mobile. So click the three lines at the top and then merchandise, and you'll get to our store from there. Any problems, do get in touch. Now, it's time for Leo Ballantyne. Leo is a member of Menfulness. He's a regular, shouting up in our WhatsApp group, supporting other people, coming to events, and just opening up about his experiences with ADHD and how it's affected his life. This is a really nice chat with a genuine guy who has been through a lot in his life already. There's a few potentially triggering bits to this where we touch on suicide as well as loss and grief. But as always, it's an overall positive conversation. We're incredibly grateful to Leo for sharing so that we get to benefit from his experiences. After this episode, let us know what you think. Give us a like, share, comment, subscribe. All this just helps us keep growing and reaching new people that might just need to hear from us. Thank you. Enjoy. It's Leo Ballantyne. Leo, thank you for being here, mate. Welcome.
Pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
So you rocking the Menfulness cap.
Yeah,
Thank
brother,
you, man.
got to represent
Oh,
it.
mate.
Yeah. Did you see me at the 10K? Someone got pics of me with it on.
I did. You've got the calm vest on.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Menfulness hat on.
Yeah, well, in true ADHD style, I was very underprepared and was late. And then, so I jogged over to your guys' tent, was like, hi, I think Dan was there, and Sai. And I was like, hi, yeah, I need to get in the pen. And they were like, oh, they're all over there somewhere. And yeah, didn't see anyone.
No, but you did it. The photos are there. You were there, man. And,
I was.
And how did it go for you? How was it?
Do you know what? It was a beauty, man. I missed breakfast, but the first 5K I was sailing.
Oh, yeah?
My goal was just get round.
Yeah.
So I just cruised it, had a mint time.
Yeah,
sort of popped halfway through with energy and that.
Yeah,
and
well, the sun was out as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I hate running in the heat, man. It just saps me of energy.
Yeah.
Some people are solar powered, but nah, I'd much rather run in a monsoon.
There was a guy in a bin.
Yeah, I passed him, fortunately, because that'd be upsetting, wouldn't it?
And a nice guy called Ben from Mind, who was in an elephant costume.
past him as well, MLB.
Yeah,
I give him a tap on his shoulder. Well done, Nelly, get it done, because that can't be fun. There was a dude in full cricket whites, pads, helmet, and a bat.
That was Chris from York Mind as well.
Right.
So people were showing up for the mental health charities, and so yeah, thank you for representing.
No
mate.
pleasure, mate. Thank you for giving me the spot.
And you were sub an hour, weren't you? You did it in a quite
54
a good...
something.
Yeah, mate, that's a good time, man.
Yeah, man.
Good.
You can't sneeze at that. Thank you.
Excellent. And so yeah, just so people know, I met you at one of the night sessions at the stadium. It must have been over a year ago.
Yeah, probably.
We were down in the shop at the time.
Yeah, are they both Aussies? Them two Antipodeans, Brendan and
yes. They were both there.
Both there.
Oh,
mate.
yes. Yeah. So we're talking well over a year ago then. But it's grown and we've moved into a different room now. But we were still cramming a fair few around the table at that point.
Yeah, my first one, it was full.
Yeah, 20, 30 people.
Yeah,
and I just I clocked you because you just spoke really effortlessly, and I remember you kind of including people, and I think that's always the beauty of those things, because people come through that door. I think it might have been your first one that I met you at.
I did speak at my first,
and it's scary for a lot of people. It's scary for me, and it's like to go in and sit down at your first one and kind of just be frank and be honest. It makes everybody else feel a little bit less. Actually, I can talk as well then. And so yeah.
That's what it's about, isn't it?
Absolutely,
that's what we're there for, man.
So how did you come across us then?
It's a good question. Matty asked me this the other day, and I think I'm sure, and it'd be true for most of us. I'm sure it's just socials mostly. I know my mother on Facebook shares a lot and stuff. And she's probably mentioned it a few times in passing. I don't really speak to her too much about my mental stuff. But obviously I was in a place where like Googling like mental health help, like counselling, blah, blah, blah. And you guys will have definitely been up there.
Oh, that's
like
good.
Calm Samaritan's Mind, York Menfulness. Oh,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's good to
know.
And
then, knowing it on the Facebook. And then I'll have just seen that one session. Yeah. And I know, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but my brother, he's older than me, with his difficulties, he speaks very highly of group therapy. And I know what we do isn't like professional group therapy and everything, but it must be similar contextually. So I was like, go and give it a go. If it's not for me, it's not for me. But lo and behold, I'm still here.
Man. So... And, it sounds like there's been a few different adventures since we first met, and you still stay in touch. I like that as well, which has been really nice.
Well, it's a beautiful thing, man.
And the WhatsApp group's good for that, isn't it? Doesn't matter where in the world you are, we can keep up with what you're up to. So, before we get going, then just a little bit so people know who you are and what you're about. Can you give us a bit of background about you, name, age, that sort of thing?
Yeah, man. So Leo, obviously, as you said, born and bred in York, 28 years old now. I'll be 29 in January. Man, that's always spooky when you say it out loud, knocking on the door of 30.
But you can't. Once you get to the 8, you can't really say you're mid anymore.
No, lad, it's late 20s, isn't it? Oh, yeah, that was a tough one. But it happens to all of us, doesn't it? Yeah. So, that's interesting you say with my first Menfulness session. I do remember a million observation. It's not negative or positive or whatever, but I do distinctly remember being significantly young there. Yeah. But as I say, those two Antipodean lads were there who were younger than me, I think. So that was a bit of relief. And obviously I don't mind it. It was just like, oh God, is it going to be a bit of a middle-aged men group? Which of course it isn't.
No, but that and I think there's each of our age activities have different age groups that come to them. But from our podcast listeners, we're usually in the sort of 35 to 50 mostly. Right. And I think the football edge is slightly younger, I guess, because of the sort of exertion of energy. But it's different strokes for different folks, isn't it? We kind of want something for everyone, ideally, so that no one's left out. Some people are like, I don't really want to play computer games. Sitting and talking in a circle, it's not natural for most blokes, is it?
No. But that's what we're trying to break down.
Yeah, exactly. So get him into something else first.
Yeah.
So you went straight in, no messing about, to probably the most intense activity that we've got,
right,
which is our talking group.
I think my first, actually, just remembering, was one of the Sunday walks around the bar walls.
Oh, yeah,
Again,
right.
everyone was quite a bit older than me, but
Yeah.
as you say, much more casual.
Yeah, it
just
is, isn't it?
ambling, and we were nattering, but...
Yeah. Dan's lovely, who runs that group as well.
Right,
and he's been doing that for 3 years now.
Oh, class.
Barely missed one. Just he loves it, and it
is a pleasant.
It's nice, isn't it? So, I'm glad you're still here, man. I'm glad you're still finding something to gain from it.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those groups where it's
Hopefully
like you come along.
as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here you are, man. But this is it. Is you don't. It's not one that you need to sort of come along while you're feeling a certain way and then go when you're not feeling that way anymore. It's always we're all works in progress, aren't we? And so,
community, innit?
Yeah. So what led you to us then? Was it, are you happy to talk to us a little bit about what it was that made you think we were the right fit for you?
Yeah, so I was much more badly at that time with, as I say, sometimes it's hard to look back on, man, like, and I do this often, like, I haven't been my best with, like, depression-wise, if you call it that. I was on antidepressants last year, and I was really resistant to medicine, but it got to the point where it was like, okay, doc, I'll just try anything. If it's gonna work, it's gonna work, and it did help. It did lift the mood and everything. And then I had CBT alongside weaning myself off, and that must have that literally finished just before I started first year, so only just about a year ago, pre September. And I remember thinking in December. And don't get me wrong, it's been up and down. Healing isn't linear, isn't it? But I remember in December, just like looking back, like, I cannot believe I was in that place that I was in. So and it's like, it's still really odd to look back. Yeah. I mentioned it to you before we started, but it's just like, you had years of living robbed off of you. Yeah. Like, I wasn't living, I was just existing. Yeah. And it's like really spooky to think back. But
amazing though that you feel that there's like so much distance travelled in what sounds like a fairly short period of time with the right moves made. And I'd love to hear a bit more about CBT.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
But how long would you say that you felt that way then?
Well, it's hard, isn't it, to actually, because it's so insidious, it creeps up on you. You don't necessarily even realise. And when I speak to the professionals and stuff, they're like, "How long have you been?" And I'm like, honestly, man, as an adolescent, I've been dealing with stuff like this on and off. Like I say, my first counselling, I'll have been 21, 22, and then sort of had 4 years just doing whatever. And then, it got really bad again, which was when I heard about you guys and was like, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. It's not going to make me any worse, is it? Yeah. Seeing what the crack is all about. And no, obviously it's been very beneficial for me, so... I think it was just that, in a bad place, trying to do anything and everything that I could. Yeah,
your early 20s is such a formative time, isn't it? And for you to be sort of battling so much. And you had some counselling at 21, and did that help? Did you find that sort of talking therapy was useful to you then?
That did help, yeah. Yeah, the specific sort that I got. I think did they call it Gestalt? I seem to recall. Right. Because there's all sorts of variations, isn't there? And like how CBT is not counselling per se. And then you've got holistic counselling. I think it's Gestalt. Anyway, it was reasonably proactive. We did, at that time, when I was just exploring everything with the guy, who's absolutely phenomenal, by the way. Can't recommend Mind Enough or any of these charities, honestly. But yeah, when we were exploring it, I was extremely angry. Yeah. But that was sadness manifesting as an emotion that's easier to express. Wow. It was much more deep rooted. Okay. So we worked on a lot of self-hatred and frustration with the world. I had to get that off the back of, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, my first ever girlfriend. We were together 18 to 24. Wow. And as you just mentioned, your early 20s, very formative years. So unfortunately, I always described it as we were like victims of circumstance. We just grew apart. Very, very amiable breakup, and we're still friends to this day. And I was going through some earlier this year, and she was great. Like, had a really long phone call with me, helped me figure stuff out, and was like, I still really care for you, obviously. And I was like, yeah, same, of course. Sorry, I told you I'd digress.
Mate, listen, digressing is absolutely fine, mate. You don't need to worry about that. And if anything, this makes it adds the little tangents add richness to what it is that you're trying to say, and I think that it speaks volumes about people when they break, but they're able, especially when you're in the place that you were in, they're able to still break amicably and still care for each other and look out for each other. And I think you need that, especially you're still young at 18. It's a young time to get into a relationship and then right into your early adulthood. It's that can't have been easy to accept when you've got all the rest of the world on your shoulders too.
Well, yeah, no, you say the counselling, it got to that, and it will have been like a year or two after, as it had built on the foundation of depression that I already had in me.
Right.
Which we'll get into, won't we? My feelings of alienation, etc. But yeah, oh, God bless them. Lovely, lovely family. But unfortunately, her mother passed from cancer.
Right.
And then not even a year later, they lost their father to ischemic heart disease. And yeah, we'll have been, I might be getting the ages wrong, but we were 21, 22, 23. And she's the matriarch.
Yeah.
Sorry, not, well, she's the eldest of the four siblings. So has always had that, you know, the elder sibling role.
Yeah.
And obviously me being with her and stuff. Yeah, it was just tough, man. So obviously, and God, like, not even my mother and father, but it was like just horrible, mate. So obviously you get really angry about that, don't you? Like, why us? Why them? Why? God. Yeah, heavy, man. And then obviously that just sort of built on everything that I already had. And it's like, I guess, feelings of like, well, I must have deserved it, or yada yada, and you just get really angry at the world, understandably.
Yeah, I find it really interesting what you say about emotions coming out as, what did you say, translations of another emotion that have come out.
My anger was definitely, because it's easy, well, as a bloke as well.
Yeah.
I know people say we're not that emotionally complex, which obviously isn't true, but the societal condition, it's so much easier to be angry than it is to be sad.
Yeah.
So I just was.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't, the root wasn't anger, it was sad. Well, more than sadness, depression.
Yeah. And do you think that you were aware of that? Like, what was it? Was it a case of the counsellor sort of having to try and explain that to you? Or can you come to the, because that sounds so complicated, unpicking those sort of layers.
Yeah. I think I must have known a little.
Yeah.
But it was definitely something that we explored, and the particular exercises that we did.
Yeah.
Like we'd do, as I say, it was over a period of weeks, but we'd do, and he was just amazing, man. You know, these people are just so professional, so compassionate.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
You wonder how these people can get out of bed with that much compassion every single day.
Yeah, dude. Well, he said to me, he was like, we all get offered counselling to help us alongside with. But yeah, so we'd do, like, one of them, I recall, and you'd do it in your own time, but it was like, you just write yourself questions, like, how you feeling today, man? And then you write back the answer, and it's like, oh, why are you feeling like that? It's like, I don't know, mate, X, Y, and Z. As in, so the exercise was like, make yourself a friend. Because he's like, why are you being so harsh on yourself, man? This is too, like, the loss is incredible.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, the way you're speaking and feeling about yourself, you wouldn't do that to a friend, would you? Mm-hmm. It's like, God, no. Yeah. Like, that's really horrible for someone. So, yeah, and there's another one with an empty chair, and you imagine yourself sat in it as you would imagine a friend, but you imagine yourself. And it's like, I can see why you'd feel like that, dude. And then, obviously, it's really difficult, but...
Subconsciously, what that's doing, I mean, so you're improving your self-talk by separating yourself out and treating yourself like someone that you care about and that you love, which you should.
Yes.
Because we're the only person that we definitely know we're always going to be around.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm glad you mentioned separation. That reminded me something he said. He was like, obviously there's yourself, there's your complete self, but that negative chat in your brain is also a part of you.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily separate yourself from that, but to understand it more, to become friends with it more. Because really, everything that we have, including depression and self-hatred and stuff, it's your brain going about it the wrong way, but it's equipped for survival.
Yeah.
It's trying to help, it's just not doing it correctly.
Yeah.
So he mentioned that Pixar film, is it called Inside Out?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, inside the head you've got anger, happiness,
Yeah.
joy, all of that. And they like take it in turns driving and stuff. But really you need that collaboration. As a human being, that's
a full sort of set of emotions to deal with the stuff that comes at you.
because they're important, aren't they?
And that sounds like a remarkable experience. And that was through York Mind the first time you had that.
Yeah.
We were saying we'll post some links to the things. This was a while ago. I don't know what their offer is now, but they certainly used to offer young people under a certain age counselling sessions. So
that is true.
That's amazing that you've benefited so much from that.
Oh, dude, yeah, phenomenal. And that was the beginning of my to take that first leap as well, because you do still think, and obviously I was a young adult, and you are a bit like, oh, fucking hell, like, nonsense, is it even really, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was at the point where it was like, well, it's not going to do me any harm, is it?
Yeah.
And
I like that as well. That's a really simple but honest way of looking at it. For anyone who's like, should I go along to that event? Should I ask for that counselling? You know, we have this, we've counselled probably near 300 blokes through our counselling thing now.
Wow.
But we're still finding blokes that don't know that we exist, or that aren't sure counselling's not for me. And this is like, but it's, if you're going through something, it's not going to make you worse.
Yeah.
It's not going to make you worse. It might be difficult. It might be a little uncomfortable at first. But what if it's just what you need?
Yeah, and in our society, I think it's quite a British thing, isn't it? It probably still is not ill looked upon, but there's shame surrounding it, or like people see it as mumbo jumbo and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas in America, it's like everyone has therapists. Yeah, it's perfectly normal.
Yeah, it's seen as like something that you have even when things are absolutely fine.
Yeah,
they could be better. You could be jumping to a hurdle off, approaching a goal in a different way, and so why not kind of treat yourself like someone you care about? No, that's amazing, man. So we've talked about sort of from 21 then. Had you noticed this sort of thing earlier on into your childhood then? Is it something that did you grow up being able to sort of talk about your emotions? What was your sort of background in that respect?
No, mate, no. As I say, it was more like when I look back now, it's like, I probably was dealing with that when I was 14, 15, 16, and actually in my adolescence it was way more anxiety than depression. But I think as you mature and stuff, that then, because they overlap, don't they? So I think the anxiety just sort of developed into depression. But no, not until, I guess, only after you guys and being much more involved with it, and having more experience with counselling and being open with my depression and etc., have I only recently become such an advocate for it.
When you're very good at it, like you're generous with what you're going through,
right?
And I think you can see when you put something in the group, people respond, and it starts conversations, and it's you don't know what an impact that's having. Just you sharing what you're going through on other people in there, and there's a couple of hundred blokes in that group. Many of them don't say anything, but if it wasn't, they weren't getting something from it, they'd leave. You know, the amount of blokes in there that are gaining just from seeing other people who are kind enough to tell people their stories.
Well, that's why I like to think, brother, I've been through it, man, and there was a time when I had to take that first step, as it were, to self-betterment. So I just think, I used to post a lot on Facebook about it as well, when I was more ill, but being like, it's all love, like, there's all these people here, you never know what people are going through. And I was just thinking, with no expectation of any reply, and it wasn't a cry for help, it was just awareness, advocacy. And I just thought, if there's one guy out there who, like, obviously it'd have to be my friend on Facebook, but if there's one guy who's deep in the tar pit and he sees that, me throwing a little bit of rope, and he messages me, or he does go on the internet and finds Menfulness, and if it's just one guy, so worth it. So worth it.
That's amazing, dude. And we don't do it enough. Well, even Menfulness, I suppose, we're posting a lot about kind of the positive news stories. But I suppose the WhatsApp group and the private Facebook group is where it can get a bit uncomfortable, but it's real. And I think the more I've been open about saying, look, I've been through this thing, even my own friends who I've known for decades have been like, yeah, I've been there, man. And I'm like, what? How did I not know this?
Yep.
How did I not know this? Why are we talking about Game of Thrones when we could be talking about, do you know what I mean? Though? It's like it's more interesting to learn about what people have actually been through.
And not just that, like, you do really want to help them, don't you? Particularly as someone who's been there. As you just mentioned, it's real.
And it
overlaps. There's no point hiding from it.
Even if we've been through totally different things and we're different ages and what have you, our experience overlaps almost every time, so...
It's so real. Well, I don't know the stats offhand, but when you read stuff like biggest killer of men under 45 is suicide, it's real.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be doing stuff about it, which...
12 blokes a day.
That's
in this
insane,
country.
Isn't it? That's not good.
And I should say it's 17, 18 people a day. There's 3/4 of men, and so it's that's kind of one of the main reasons why we're here. Is yes, it's to get blokes talking and accessing counselling, but in a bid to try and catch people before they get to that point, that ultimate point where they're done.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to say that whilst there have been moments where I've wanted to everything to stop, like I want to have an off switch, it's never become something that I've been like thought about and planned. But I know that there's the numbers on blokes who have thought about suicide and really considered how they might take their own lives. Those numbers aren't even recorded. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The numbers about who's actually done it are obscene, but the amount of people who get to that point and don't have anywhere to turn, it just makes me emotional just thinking about it.
It's horrid, isn't it, mate? And that infuriates me. Well, maybe not the right word, and I think it is getting better, actually. I've seen a few Samaritan adverts on buses in Brighton, and even when I rang them once, they said they were like, we're not just here for crisis, but a lot of it only seems to be that.
Of course,
a lot of it is like, here are all the crisis helplines, and with the GP, and I just finished some CBT, and he asked me every time. They have to, it's part of the routine, it's the checkup, and I understand it, but it's like, make sure if you're in a crisis, you had it, and it's like, aren't we trying to prevent that?
Yeah.
Like, and it's good to have that those facilities are in place, but it so much more should be done prior to that.
And there is, it's a sad state of affairs when you look at the waiting lists and the sort of thresholds, the situations that people have to be in order to actually get the support that they need. And I know, I'm not making any comment on the funding of the NHS. I know we're in that's
let's not get too
political. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
but the reality is that it's like people have to be in serious crisis to get the support that they really need. And at that point, it's like there's a lot of blokes that are ready to talk now, not in a year or 18 months. And it's it is amazing that the Samaritans are there, and I suppose historically they've always been that number that you call when you're there. And I wonder if part of the reason the stats look like they do is because blokes, until they get there, some blokes don't have the words, they don't feel like they deserve, or can bear to access it, or can admit that they're not the stable, whatever it might be. That actually, they wait till they get to a certain point before they can access something. And so, if you can I ask you a bit about your call to the Samaritans then, and what that was like, and where you were at that point?
Well, Samaritans, I've rang them a few times now as of various things, but my and I'd rather you didn't ask me too much surrounding the specifics. But after I had the attempt on my life, it was Calm who I rang. And they're obviously quite similar, but I've only spoken to Calm once in that regard. And Samaritans a few times when in real deep depression. They're really good. It's a shame you don't get a lot, but I've just found it's just a place to put it somewhere.
Right.
To be able to, I think you only get 10, 15 minutes or something and you might have to wait on the line quite a while as well, which speaks volumes, doesn't it? But they're really good at just, for me, they've always just sort of helped calm me down, grounded me. And it's often like, okay, you're feeling like this now, but have you considered like, because you're obviously really hysterical. So for me, it's just to get that sort of outsider looking in, sort of helping with the doesn't have to be like this, blah blah blah, and which I know is cliche, but it's cliche because it's true.
and to come from someone else external from the situation.
Yeah,
like you say,
because I can't ring my mate about it or my dad about it. Not that like they'd be happy to, just I can't. So to have that on anonymity, and it's someone else who's never gonna see you again or whatever. Yeah, the calm lady was brutal, dude, but excellent because I needed it.
Okay, so what, she didn't pull any punches with you then?
No, and I can't remember it exactly, but the exact gist of it was get a grip.
Wow.
Which was what I needed,
Yeah.
and she, because they're trained, aren't they? She must have known that, and it did. I was angry at her, but when I then went hung up and reflected and took myself out for a walk, I was like, get a grip, man. Which was right for me. That's not right for everyone. Not everyone needs to be told
and listen,
that. But
different strokes for different folks.
absolutely.
Man.
And she must have known that that's what I needed to hear, because it was.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that's also true. Is we can easily get lost in, like, you can't say that and you shouldn't say that, and this is, and some things are triggering for people, but equally some things are right. And when you're in that position, whatever gets you through to the next day, whatever gets you through to the next minute,
that's it, mate, innit?
Yeah. I'm glad you picked up the phone, and I would urge anybody listening who's feeling in a place like that there are people training, volunteering their time because they want to hear what you've got to say. They do not want you to go without some support in your sort of darkest hour. And what you said there, I thought was interesting too, about like anonymity and the confidentiality of speaking to someone who's not part of your situation. Like sometimes there's that fear that, like, I'm going to really worry someone, or I'll burden them. They're going to then go, or they'll be forced to go and tell somebody, and you can't take it back once you've said it to someone. No. And if you say it in the wrong way because you're in this heightened state or whatever, there's so many reasons why people can and don't talk to their nearest and dearest, and it's not personal. No. It's just that it's not right for them at that time. And I think Menfulness and groups like it are a bit of a middle ground, aren't they? Like you can go and talk to people who you've got some camaraderie with, but equally you don't know them all that well, and they aren't going to take your burden home with them, and they're not going to judge you about your past because they don't know it. Do you know what I mean? And so I hope that, wherever you are in the world, you've got a group here that have got your back.
Thanks, man. I do. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? And actually, having been much more open with my sort of like long-term friendship group, they've all been just phenomenal with it as well. But you do often feel a burden, even though you know it's wrong, because it's that putting yourself in their shoes. If it was... Wait, I'm explaining this badly. Just me, take my friendship group. I'm like, if it was one of them came to me, oh my God, open arms, man. Like, come on. And that's what they think already of me. So, but it's tough to switch that self-criticism off, isn't it? Especially when you're struggling with those particular things, because they make it even harder.
I think that's it, isn't it? Sometimes it's easier to practice before you have those conversations with the people that really mean something to you. Because I was exactly the same. I didn't know what to say, so I took myself out of the equation and stopped going to things and backed off, and then that's a spiral in itself, isn't it? Like, oh well, I won't get invited to things, I'm going to lose my friends because I can't go to these things anymore. And it's very quickly easy to spiral when you're in that place. Massively. Did you find then, at what point did you sort of bring friends and family into what you were going through, and how was that? How was that received?
I guess most recently with the lads, I sort of had like a breakdown in January, which again, I was aware it wasn't really depression, it was like grief and just overwhelming sadness. I just reached out like, look, is anyone about for a call or whatever? And I was sort of like that for a few months, and just nothing but love. I probably have taken my foot off that a little, because again, you're like, you don't want to be the burden. Like, I'm sort of sick of being the sad friend, as it were, which is horrendous, because I don't know what any of them are going through, and we do all go through stuff, and it's a very, very selfish opinion to have, that I'm the only one who struggles with things. And it's not like that. It's just when you're in that moment. But no, they've obviously just been offered me nothing but support and everything. So That's been really nice.
Yeah.
And then for me, them just sort of knowing is a relief.
Yeah.
They sort of know, so they do their best to check in and all of that. But as I say, we're all going through stuff. We've all got lives and partners and houses and jobs and X, Y, and Z. But
I've found WhatsApp voice notes to be like a great way to like connect with certain people who maybe I don't see all that often because of everything else that's going on in life. And like we're talking now, like you will sometimes, people will not talk over each other, but the natural course of conversation is to jump in and to chat, isn't it? Whereas with a voice note, there's no one to jump in, so you can start talking. You know, if you find that person who's receptive to it and who's going through that themselves, then, you know, I would encourage anybody to just give it a go talking, because it's a different way of communicating.
Yeah.
And you can do it when you're in the right headspace, and you can listen when you're in the right headspace.
That's it. I was going to say, there's no expectation of your phone ringing.
Oh, God, there's not worse than that. I do not want that.
Oh, God, yeah. So, yeah, you put it in their space and let them deal with it at their own time, and it's much more personable. Yeah, I agree with that, man. I love your voice notes, dude. I know it's a thing, but what was the one you sent me regarding this? It was like 5 minutes long or something. I loved it, though. I did.
I try and caveat at the start, like, this may be longer than I anticipate.
Yeah. No, brilliant, man. I love it.
Oh, that's good, man. So are you happy for us to talk a little bit? And you mentioned about ADHD and sort of how that's shown up in your life and when it's become, something that you recently, I understand, had a diagnosis, like how that has all transpired, if you're happy to talk about it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. And like I said to you earlier, I'm no expert on it. I'm still learning. And it's going to be one of those, isn't it? As I imagine it is for everything. It's something that is constantly a work in progress.
Yeah.
And you just learn more because it manifests differently in everyone. Yeah. And it's badly named as well. We were saying before we started, weren't we? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Yeah.
A bit quirky, like, a bit fun. It's like, and I don't know a great deal about it, and I think they don't even still really understand it. But it's like dopamine regulation.
Right.
Your brain either doesn't create enough or doesn't get enough. So it's constantly just cutting through, like, every moment, trying to find dopamine, which is then why we're more prone to substance abuse, more prone to take risks, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, when you go on the NHS site, it talks about restlessness, trouble concentrating, active impulsively, sometimes sleep, and sometimes problems with anxiety. Yeah. And you when you hear it, it's the connotations that you get are from when I was a kid. It was starting to be used to sort of, I don't know if label's the right word, but it was, people would use it to sort of cover behavioural stuff in schools, like, does this child have ADHD?
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that being the first time that I really heard about it. So that must have been like the sort of 90s,
right? Yeah.
And like you say, I still don't think they've got a proper handle on it, and whether or not the name's right, because I don't think everybody's hyperactive.
No, there's an attentive and inattentive type. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so, how did it show up for you then? Do you recognise when you noticed that something was different?
Well, again, it's a hard one, isn't it? Particularly as it affects memory.
Right.
So yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and prior to, on the portal that I was on, Psychiatry UK portal, I have like a patient portal, and prior to my assessment, which was June 29th, I think, maybe earlier. But yeah, I had forms to fill in, and it was like, they are very, very keen on how it presents in childhood.
Right.
And I was like, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I know I was on report in reception, and I remember really struggling with homework and never really ever wanting to do it.
I see.
And often I'd get told, like, in mock exams or stupid, like, pretend coursework or whatever, it'd be like, what you've done there, like, none of it is wrong. It's all intelligent and everything, but you started answering the question and then you just started talking about something else. And, the famous one, isn't it? In every, like, school report, it's like, intelligent and erudite, just needs to apply himself more.
Yeah.
And you're sat there, I don't know, you're like 8, 10, 12, whatever, and it's like, I'm trying to apply myself, man. And you can't express that, and there's never really a place to express that. No. And obviously my parents, God bless them, like, they had no idea. And, like, get frustrated at, like, why won't you just do your homework? And it's like, in my head, I'm like, I've been sorry for the past hour or two telling myself to do it, but I just can't put this game down, or I can't stop watching cartoons or whatever. Yeah. Or I really just want to go out and play with my mates. Like, homework be damned. But
yeah. And so what that does, like, sort of making you feel like you're failing.
Yes.
When actually,
oh, God.
You're really trying.
Yeah.
It's just, you experience it differently.
Yeah. And there's the whole thing of the world not being built for neurodivergence, is it? So...
Absolutely, and I mean, as much as the conversation around it and the amount of diagnoses that seem to be happening, it doesn't change the fact that the world is not geared up for people that are neuroatypical. Is that the right way to describe them?
Yeah, if you like. I think neurodivergent is the one that people say.
Are you happy with being described like that? How does that feel when you were kind of diagnosed, and what did that mean to you to get that diagnosis?
Yeah, well, it's sort of true, isn't it? Like the brain is wired differently.
Yeah. Because I know some people don't want the label, but then some people want it because it helps make sense of what their experiences have been like.
For me, it's like, if I'm talking to they say neurotypical, don't they? It's like, we are different.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't operate like how yours does, no matter how much I want it to.
Yeah.
So, for me, it makes sense to label it. But I understand, as you say, some people don't want that, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
Fair enough to them. But yeah, it's tough, man. It's been, and like I say, I've only very recently been diagnosed, so a lot of grief.
Yeah.
A lot of grief.
Right.
Like, looking back. And I have a big thing, again, with my depression. One of my things, particularly being 28 now, and only going to uni when I was 27, obviously a lot of it is good and to be celebrated, but I'm like, I'm 10 years behind my peers. Loads of them are married, loads of them have houses, loads of them have 50k salaries or whatever, and it's like, don't even feel like a proper adult, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but...
And you're only 28. I mean, let's be real. Like, the society has changed a little in that think people are prioritising things like houses and kids and that sort of thing later on in their life.
Yeah.
Societally, I think.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get, I was just saying a little bit before, like, anchored down.
Yeah.
So early that you haven't fully, like, actualized yet. Like, I must admit, I've felt more myself in the last few years.
Right.
I think I needed to hit a wall of anxiety and realize that I was covering up loads of insecurity and, like, shame and imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can't parent like that. I can't live like that. Mm-hmm. And actually, I'm quite glad that I bought this house and I met Anna when I did, because I'm later on in my life.
Right,
I'm going to be an older dad than my dad was by 10 years.
Right.
But I'm quite glad about that.
Yeah, good.
I'm more me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm sorry to make that about me, because I mean,
no, lad, of course.
What we're talking about is, I guess
it's pertinent. Yeah.
A huge shift in your understanding of what your life has been. Was that fair to say? Like,
yeah.
When you get a diagnosis like that, it's like, oh, shit, makes sense.
Yeah, little. If you just allow me to, I just wanted to say that you mentioning the societal thing and the pressures, it's like, and it's a very westernized thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is no right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
But you can't help, particularly myself, I feel like I'm sort of swimming against the flow, as it were.
Right.
Which is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want a house.
Yeah.
I don't want a 50k job or whatever, in that sense. But it can still be hard to think of it when...
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Because that still feels what, like, the end goal is assumed it should be.
Yeah. And I'm just not ready for that yet, which is fine. And it's good to recognise that, but it doesn't make it any easier necessarily.
No.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that. So
No.
are you saying with the getting diagnosed?
I guess just interested in sort of whether things have changed for you as a result of it, whether you sort of, do anything differently now that you know.
Yeah, again, it's tough. So I guess in a way you sort of already know, but also you don't because like my conscious is the only one that I have. It's the only one I've ever known.
Yeah,
So I can't I don't know what it's like to be neurotypical, and I never will.
yeah,
So you don't really understand that you're quote unquote different.
yeah.
And then a lot of my depression is deep seated in feeling alienated,
Okay.
not feeling normal, not feeling like I belong.
Yeah.
So was struggling with that. And then I think I was 24, 25, just in the pub farting about like how I do little prankster or whatever. And someone just sort of was like, "Look, man, can I just have a word?" Like, really, like, just fully from a place of love. I was like, "Yeah, of course." And they just got me, and they were like I've been seeing you a few times these weekends there and that, and I just got diagnosed with ADHD like a year or two ago, and I think you have it.
Right.
I was like, "Oh, okay." And then they were like, "I'm in this Facebook group for it, try and get into here." And I spoke to her about it, and the support group was really good. And then you just start reading up on it, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's me. Yeah, that is me. Oh God, yeah." To the point where I spoke to my GP about it eventually, which was funny. That was probably 2 or 3 years ago. Here you are, fill in these forms, write this essay, get back to us. 2 years later, ringing them up again, like, yeah, I mentioned about ADHD and I never got round to doing anything.
2 years?
Yeah, my
Honestly?
own fault. I didn't.
Was it?
Yeah, just put it off. Just put it
right.
off. And they were like, how come you haven't filled these forms in then? We spoke about it. Because I think I've got ADHD.
Yeah.
Sat down filling in
Why the hell do you think
bureaucracy.
forms are the right way to go about?
Yeah. So then I got into it all, and I had to write like a 500-word page on how it affects my quality of life and stuff.
Is that a test then to see? It sounds so counterintuitive to make somebody sit and do that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
But I suppose if that's the best method to understand it, right? Because how else do you know? I think the only way that they know is based on the symptoms.
Yeah.
And filling in like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like an autism, OCD, ADHD test.
Man.
Online. And then in this portal I had like 4 forms to fill in about childhood and adulthood and how it affects quality of life. And third party had to fill in a couple, which I got my mother to do.
Right.
And then I had the assessment with the guy. It's kind of horrible actually, some stuff he'd asked me, but they need to get into the nitty gritty, don't they?
Yeah.
And again, just from my own reading about it, I do remember he's asking me questions about autism here.
Right.
He's asking me questions about OCD here,
Okay.
which was scary. Not that it should be,
No.
but it was kind of scary. And I was like, fucking hell, does he think I have that? But they just want to cover all bases because they do go hand in hand, don't they? There is no real...
Yeah, it's a neurodivergence.
Yeah. But
you kind of come to terms with the idea you might have ADHD, but the idea that it might be autism or OCD
which I wasn't prepared for.
Frightening, of course.
And it wasn't. I don't think we've decided that. But I think we had 90 minutes scheduled, and we must have got about an hour through. And he was like, "Okay, Leo, I think I've got what I need here. Anything from you? Any questions or whatever?" And I was like, "Well, I'd scrolled a load of stuff down, mate, that I wanted to make sure that you knew." He's like, "Okay." And I read a few of them out, and he was like, Stop. I've got enough.
Yeah.
You present quite highly to me, so
Right.
I do think you've got it, and we are going to try and get you X, Y, and Z. And like I say, that will have only been 2 months ago or so.
Man, well, I'm glad you got a diagnosis. I know there's been a lot in the news recently about how hard it is to get them, and something going on with private diagnoses.
Being fake. Yeah, which is horrible, man. Horrible.
Like it's not hard enough already to get taken seriously and the support you need to then have something like that, find out it's not real.
And society already has a poor perception of it. And then, that just like trivializes it even more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
which is really not good.
Would you mind me asking what sort of support you will get, or you think you need?
Well, yeah. So as you, and again, not to get political, but I know you mentioned earlier. So they've put me on a waiting list for titration, which is testing medicines. Right. I think it's lisdexamfetamine they're going to try giving me to start with. They're all amphetamine based to help your brain get the stimulation that it needs.
Which I always thought was really surprised me in that, because it's a hyperactivity.
Sounds the wrong way around, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Yeah, it's fascinating. But there must be loads of research.
But that's what it is. Your brain is searching for that dopamine-based stimulation.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, that's 7 months. I've got to wait for that.
Right.
With potentially psychotherapy and stuff. But yeah, that's 7 months. So again, it sort of felt like, and nobody's fault because the individuals all really want to help. Yeah. It's probably worse for them, isn't it? But sort of like, okay, yeah, you have it. Back in the water now. Good luck for 7 months till we scoop you out again. Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cheers.
And what about the support from, you mentioned there was a group that you'd been a part of, and does interacting with Facebook groups and other people who you know who have been diagnosed, does that help? Do you feel more part of a community in that respect?
The Facebook group, the admins sort of like just became inactive, so that hasn't been a thing for quite a while. And then I don't really know anybody else who's really particularly ailed by it, if that's the right word. But yeah, just in the Menfulness group, the blokes who have it and say stuff about it, I haven't really discussed it with them, but just knowing that other people struggle is sort of like, oh, I'm one of them.
Yeah. Which
is a bit of, gives you a sense of belonging, I suppose, which is something I've never really had. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad, and I would. When you can share in there when you're ready, and I've spotted quite a few blokes talking about where they're at, and I guess everyone's at a different point on that journey, and there is some who make light of where they're at. Saw something today saying with someone saying that Menfulness is becoming quite a safe space for neurodivergent people, and then said something along the lines of well, I was thinking about maybe having a subgroup and then creating one, and then adding everyone, and then doing all this extra stuff, and then getting bored of it straight away, and then never using it again. Yeah. And I was like, it's nice that he feels safe in order to be able to make jokes like that, and that's his thing. But I suppose there's also that societal thing that people do, which is, I've been guilty of myself before, where they say I'm a bit ADHD about that, or I'm a bit OCD about that, which is kind of like you mentioned before. It feels like it maybe trivializes it a little bit. Yeah, people really don't know what it's like.
No, it affects quality of life, man, quite badly.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of things in there: executive dysfunction, emotional dysregulation, rejection, sensitivity disorder. And they're all horrible, mate.
And so you've experienced those things. Yeah. Are you happy to talk about any of those things?
Yeah, again, I don't really know them all that well, but yeah, and it's tough to know about it. Oh, dude, yeah, like when I was a kid, I was a crier, man. Yeah. Always really crying, because we feel everything. So it's a blessing and a curse. Right. I think Ross wrote something about it, if he doesn't mind me saying. Sorry.
I'll check with him.
When I said that I just had a diagnosis in Menfulness. And he wrote something about the highs are so high, but man, are the lows really low. Because we just, whatever it is, feel everything so much more deeply. The emotional dysregulation. Yeah. And I spoke to, a friend once who's a GP, and we were chatting about it. He has it. Right. And I was saying, I'm on my journey, I'm waiting for it, I've got an assessment coming up. He's like, oh, right. He was like, well, look, in the basic of senses, I've always understood it as, and he did me a graph. Obviously, unfortunately, listeners, I can't draw you one. But he drew me a graph. You've just got a line, right?
Yeah.
And if above is mania and below is depression, he's like, your regular human being sort of straddles that line. Yeah. And then someone with bipolar, for example, it's really prominent, the peaks and the troughs. Right. And then ADHD and like even autism and OCD, somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So we have more mania than a neurotypical, and we have more depression than a neurotypical.
Yeah.
And it's just having to try and come to terms with it all, isn't it? Because I remember I'd always get told I'm really annoying and stuff, or like even my friends and that, it'd be like, do you ever shut up? Or like, why are you talking about this when we're trying to talk about that? And it's like, oh, I don't know, it just made sense to talk about that now. Went to go see my friends in Ellesmere Port, literally mid-conversation. Again, the absolute classic. Just talking and I was like, whoa, look, there's a plane. And they all just burst out into laughter. I was like, I've just done that thing, haven't I? And they were like, yeah, man. And one of them, who doesn't know me as well as the others, and he was like, fucking hell, man, you make me laugh. I said, what do you mean? And he was like, I want to get inside your head. How does your brain work? I couldn't give you examples, but he's like, just talking about this, and then you're talking about that, and then... So, yeah, I used to have alienation with that, and I definitely used to mask a lot.
Right, so you cover it up. So even though you're feeling it internally, you try and present like everybody else is presenting in that situation.
And then you get really like, oh, am I speaking too much? Am I making too much eye contact? Have I not said enough? Did I eat today? What did I have for breakfast? Oh, yeah, you had that banana. Oh, God, he's telling me something important. Need to remember to get that bus at 21:23. Aren't buses weird? Some of them have 4 wheels, some of them have 6. There's those electric ones now as well, isn't there? And it's strange that we have electric motors now. And they don't run the same as just like that.
Yeah, tangents.
Like, oh, my God.
Tangents.
And you just can't escape it. But that's who I am, isn't it?
Yeah. My best friend, my dearest friend, Simon, he won't mind me saying, but I will ask him. But you know, he's a mature student as well. He's older than I am, and he's just had a diagnosis in the last few years, and it's answered those same sort of questions for him. That tangents. You know, he's a music producer, and so for him, sitting and focusing on like listening to the same tiny bit of music again and again and again until it's bang right like that, he can do that, no problem, for hours and hours and hours and hours on end.
Yeah.
But have a conversation with him, and it takes it 3/4 of an hour to get to the point that he's trying to make, and it makes for the most incredible, fascinating, whirlwind conversation.
Right,
it's why I love him, you know. So I suppose in some respects, that mate who's like, man, I want to get inside your head. It's not like, it sounds like that's an endearing way that he sees
very much
you, rather than,
it very much
you know.
was.
So it's like, I guess people mask because they feel like they're supposed to be more neurotypical. Whereas actually, what makes you neurodivergent might be the thing that makes you more endearing to people.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Like I said, blessing and a curse. And with that, it's like finding your people.
Yeah.
Which is true for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's like, and not that they have to be neurodivergent at all. It's just people who like it doesn't define me.
No.
But it's obviously like affects who I am to a degree. And it's just finding people that are not tolerant. Tolerant isn't the right word, but people who, I guess, as you say, who find it endearing.
Yeah.
Like the people who hate it or whatever. Not that it's like that, because I can understand how it'd be annoying for people, but it's like, well, bollocks to you. Like, I can't help it, man.
Exactly. This is who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, again, I'm not trying to make it about me, although I seem to keep doing that.
No, it's a conversation, isn't it, brother?
But what you say about being in a live conversation and being up in your own head, that was, you know, I spent years and years thriving on live conversations. Granted, probably trying to be what everybody wanted, but recognizing that my mask was falling off when I was at my most anxious, because I was like, have I said something? I've upset them there. What do they think of me? Oh God, I've just said something and I've forgotten. And then going, shit, I'm not in this conversation anymore, and they've noticed. Now they think I'm fucking weird. Oh God, now what? And then it's a loop, and then it's like, then it is anxiety, and it's I can sort of see from what you've said why they say it can lead to anxiety, because people are masking,
and it's tiring to mask, physically and mentally exhausting.
I bet.
And we shouldn't have to.
No.
That's the world built for neurotypicals again. Why should we have to fit into your little... Not that it's an us and them, it shouldn't be, but...
And you hope that now it's like my partner, she's a Senko at school, and young people displaying sort of traits, characteristics of being neurodivergent is quite common.
Yeah.
And they recognise it, even though it might not be diagnosed at a really young age. She's in primary school.
Yeah.
They understand what children need more.
Yeah,
and
good.
she's just about to open an alternate provision at her school. So they're actually allowing, they're saying that it's normal classrooms might not be the best environment to learn in. And so rather than keeping people in the same place and them falling behind or feeling like they're failing, then why not provide them with a space that is
that's great
to
hear,
them.
man. That's great to hear.
You would hope that over the years, as they become adults, rather than feeling like they have to mask, they recognise that they are as much of a part of the society, that they help build the society that is more sort of geared up for people.
And it's a recognised legal disability in UK law. If you disclose it to your employer, they, depending on what you discuss with them and what you need, they might be legally obliged to make reasonable adjustments to make your work life easier, much as a individual in a wheelchair needs ramps and accessible toilets or whatever. It's not dissimilar to that, is it?
Absolutely. No.
That's good though, man, because like I say, just knowing, and I'm sure I don't, and I would never want to use it as an excuse for anything, but at times, because I now know, and it's helped me to understand and stuff, and I don't disclose it to everyone. A close friend told me, I was like, do I like make a Facebook post about it? Do I tell all my buddies? And they were like, look, man, it's your thing. You tell whoever you want to tell.
Yeah.
Like, you don't, and it was him. He was like, it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have it, but it's not who you are.
It's an aspect of you.
Yeah. So if you feel it appropriate to tell whoever, then tell them. And obviously, I've told university and stuff, and they've been phenomenal with it.
Have they?
But yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. Or at times, just like, not that people are necessarily being horrible to me particularly, but if they just meet me and stuff, nowadays it might be a little, look, man, I can see that I'm maybe annoying you here or whatever. I'm really sorry, I've got ADHD. Yeah. And then they're more often than not like, oh my God, like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's like, yeah, you weren't to know, but I'm not trying to be annoying.
Yeah.
It's just how I am. And yeah, there's still so much that I don't know and still getting to grips with. And
yeah. Well, this is so recent, man.
Yeah.
So recent.
Yeah. And I'm no expert by any means, just that's the...
Well, and it's we do try and make that clear to everyone. We're not, Menfulness, we're run by people who've have lived experience of their own challenges, but none of us are qualified to, and nor is that not what we're about. We're not about diagnosing. We're about sort of just taking people as they are. But I think this podcast has become an interesting way to like really get to know someone. Like, we get to hear each other's stories a little bit for 10 minutes here and there at an event or something like that, and you meet people who are like, they're fascinating, and you want to hear their full story. And I know there's going to be loads of people who are going to get so much from this, man, for sure.
Oh, class. Thank you, dude.
And yeah, like I say, you're very generous with it, and I think that I wonder if it's hard for some people to be generous with it, or to have the words for it. I don't know, because I'm neurotypical, and I know how hard it was, for example, for me to talk about anxiety, just from a societal perspective, just from a, will people judge me? Will people think I'm not a good member of staff or a parent? Or will people judge the fact that I'm not masculine enough? Or whatever the stigma is around anxiety in a man, and but all of that from a neurotypical place. But to have something that you're opening up and talking about and being open about, but also doing that with the challenges that that has. Like, I didn't even ask you when we came in, like, is there anything that you need from a hour and a half long conversation with someone face to face that might be different from what I'm used to? Like, I probably should have opened with that.
Well, I also hadn't thought about it, if it makes you feel better.
Yeah, well, but it's just something that we're all learning, aren't we?
Dude, fully.
But is this comfortable for you?
Yes, man. Yeah. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah,
good. Thank you.
No, pleasure. Interesting that you say I'm generous with it. That's kind, thank you. But I think for me, and like you said with the stigma, like worried about people caring, am I a parent, am I masculine, societal, and I really am, and I do struggle with it, but I really am very much, one of my deep tenets is, fuck those people, man. They don't matter. They've got it all wrong. It's nothing but love, man.
Yeah.
It's nothing but love, and that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
And if, as I said, I'm not sure if I said it when we were rolling, but like, if us sat here talking about this and whatever I post on Facebook and sharing Menfulness things, or somebody sees the poster in the toilet or the Samaritan sign on the bridge or whatever, if that helps one person, just one, to think about, holy shit, maybe there is some support, maybe I can do something about it, then it's all been worth it, hasn't it?
Absolutely, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting what you say there about fuck those people, because I feel like that's a superpower for people to be able to like take control of their existence, like regardless of anybody else. And I'm getting there. I am getting there, and I feel like
I'm certainly not there. I struggle with it. It's very human to struggle with that.
Those sort of expectations, and the thing is that I've never, I couldn't put my finger on when, in particular, I started giving a shit about what other people think. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I can go, oh well, there was that time. Like I maybe had it a little rough at school, but no more than other little kids have at secondary school. You know, that feeling of like, why do we care about what other people think? Why does it have an impact on our day-to-day life? Why is, you know, how men talk about their feelings so stigmatized? Why can't we just be who we need to be?
That's a very the little reading I've done on it, that's a very Western way of thinking, these three pillars of societal pressures, familial pressures, and individual pressures, because there is so much pressure to, in the individualistic neo-capitalist world, there's so much to make something of oneself. To have money is what's important. To have a good job is what's important. Whereas, like, and I've never been, unfortunately, it's on my list, but people say you go to Southeast Asia and stuff. Well, Buddhism, of course. It's very much, nah, we're just here. Much like the ant is just here. They just exist. And don't worry about that. Like, we're just here. Like, we don't exist alongside nature. We are nature. And I think we've lost our way with that. But
100%, we've become kind of consumers to be marketed at, and we need to, you know, and it is a very fast-paced environment. And I think that's you know, you wake up in the morning and look at your phone and you get a bit of news and it's like, oh god, the dread sets in. So I suppose maybe there is some of that like you got to keep on going. There's this hustle culture, isn't there? Of like more onwards. And I've been guilty of it myself, kind of. I'm a coach, and I've found that helps me, despite the imposter syndrome and despite the like fear of failure and other people's opinions, setting goals and attaching myself to those future outcomes has helped me still do big things despite feeling like I'm not good enough. And so that's been really useful to a point, but then it also gets to that point where then you're starting to berate yourself for not getting your to-do list done and not having that job that you really wanted, or, you know, and it's like it's all fairly materialistic stuff. I'm still me regardless of where I live or what I do, with
a loving wife and a lovely little daughter. And
this is it. My dad once said to me, and I know he meant it he's right in so many ways, but I was talking to him about my mental health, and he went, what on earth have you got to be anxious about? And he meant it with all his heart, and and you know he's right. It's like, look, I know.
Nah, but that's not how it works.
But is it? I know, and I'm like, I wish I could answer that question. I wish I could answer it.
Yeah, that's not fair, man.
But he can't help, and this is it. I wouldn't wish him to ever experience it. But I think unless you've experienced it, it's very hard to get yourself into that mindset of oh, I see where you're coming from.
You can have sympathy for it, but you can't have empathy.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, two very different things.
But funnily enough, he is one of those people who he's not looking for more. He's you know, I asked him about aspirations, whether he felt like he wasn't ever good enough or anything like that, and that isn't the way that he sees the world, or he's geared up. Yeah.
And aspirations aren't necessarily inherently wrong. I didn't mean that.
No, of course.
But always, self-improvement is a good thing. It's of course. Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the only thing.
No. And that's not right, man. These diseases, they don't take prisoners, man. They're insidious.
Yeah.
It's not. They can affect anyone.
Yeah.
And that doesn't belittle it or dilute it any.
No.
Yeah. I wanted to say that because
thank you, man.
Like, because some people think like that. What have I got to be depressed about? What have I got to be anxious about it? Don't worry, man. This isn't your fault.
No.
The illness has a grip on you, man. Like, you haven't. Don't think like that.
Yeah, I think it's helping that more and more people are coming out in positions of power, or sports people, and even in Tyson Fury, or in the most masculine and the most high pressure environments, and going, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, if they can get to where they are while not feeling good, then it's not a sentence. It doesn't define us. It's something that we live with.
Yeah.
Whew,
heavy.
That was, but I'm glad we went there.
And I'm sat here like ticking along, like I've got so many more things to say about that, and what's the one that I forgot to say, and then I should have said that. It's too late now. I couldn't even remember what that was.
Beautiful, man, is that we can do this, and then you're gonna go off on another adventure.
Yeah, buddy.
And you come back like this,
a different man.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think
a better man, hopefully.
Well, look, I think what is the saying about the river? I should know this because I've tried to recount this statement before, but it's something along the lines of that a man never steps in the same river twice. Not the same river, not the same man. Because it's like every single we're going through it. You mentioned it before, I suppose, that progress isn't linear. We're trying to, like, every experience is going to change us, and so finding out. I hope you don't mind me saying, but it sounds like you've gone through a hell of a lot in a very short space of time, and going off to university. You've done a year of uni?
Yeah.
You've had that diagnosis. Yeah. You're about to go travelling. Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, happily. I think when we were discussing it before we got into the recording, and as I say, I look back on my struggles with depression and with ADHD as well and stuff, and I'm like, again, with my alienation, not thinking I was living the correct path, etc., etc. I look back and I'm like, I've had years robbed from me, and potential experiences robbed from me, and I need to be better at thinking equally how much I have done and how fortunate I have been to have had the opportunities that I have, etc. But it's sort of got to the point now where I think I'm mostly on the other side of it. It will always be a work in progress. We're human beings. I still have bad days. Sometimes I get triggered by things. I've got a lot of emotional stuff that I'm trying to deal with at the minute, but I'm getting counselling for. And then it's just sort of about acquiring a toolbox that I can then apply to. And now I recognise if there's a sort of depressive veneer coming over my life, take a step back, reflect, try and stay afloat. But yeah, I got to the point where I'm trying to, with going to university was probably obviously the biggest, but potentially the first step in sort of trying to take back some control, trying to start living my life for myself a little. And then with this, God rest her, blessed enough to have come into some money from my grandmother, inheritance. She passed away, obviously. And I knew I wanted to do something this summer. Something like traveling, South America, Southeast Asia, big ones on my list. Would like to go to New Zealand and stuff like that, but I had no one to go with, and again, mentally speaking, and I think I probably am right, it kind of sucks, but I knew I wasn't ready to do it on my own.
Yeah.
They say that's such an excellent thing to do, and I would like to try that, but I just don't think I could hack it. No. But yeah, so I was researching, looking at stuff, and it was getting later, and I was like, I'll probably just, I don't know, do Interrailing again, do a month in Italy or something, get the trains, because that'd be class.
Yeah,
absolutely. We've got the continental Europe on our doorstep. We ignore that far too often. Yeah. Even right here in Britain,
Man. We don't have to go too far for an adventure.
No.
But equally, you've carved out yourself a big trip, have you, this time?
Yeah, South America. I'm there for the best part of 5 weeks. So it happened, I'm a bit of a stickler for it, apparently. I'd been drinking a little, and was just prodding some fuck in the rugby chat. Nothing silly or anything, but then I think some people end up misunderstanding, which is easily done, and I've been guilty of it. Oh heck, no lads, no, like I was just being naughty. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry. Blah blah blah. And then one of them, I'm sure he won't mind me saying again, Melders he's called.
Right.
Bit younger than me. I think he's 24. But he private messages me and he's like, don't worry about it, lad. No, you're just being silly and all that. Yeah. How are you anyway? Oh, he's just been in Ukraine volunteering. Whoa. What a guy. Shout out to Melders.
Shout out to Melders. That's amazing.
Yeah, man. But yeah, how's your summer? Oh, it's kind of lonely and boring, mate. I knew I wanted to try and go do something, but I haven't got it sorted yet. Probably just go Italy. He's like, all right. Well, I'm off to South America on my own. Fancy it? Shut up. No, I'm serious. Nah, shut up. I couldn't possibly hijack your adventure. He's like, mate, it wouldn't be hijacking. I'm literally inviting you. We'll have an excellent time. All right, mate. Talk to you in the morning when I'm sober. He messages me like, now then, you big drunk man. What are you saying? And I was like, I'm in, mate. Booked my flights. And then he sort of has a little plan.
That's cool.
Brazil, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia is his sort of plan. So I am just sort of hopping along. He just booked Machu Picchu for us, which is class. So yeah, I just like put the money down, got the vaccines and stuff.
It's happening. When?
We're going, mate.
How many days?
Dude, the 22nd of August is my flight. Tuesday.
It's a week.
Yeah, man. That's I'm not mentally prepared at all.
I don't know if you could be. I've got a couple of very, very good friends who went and did it. It just looks like it's just so much fun, so much colour, incredible food. The people look amazing. The music, like everything just looks.
That's it, man.
Bob on, mate.
The culture and the people being different, give me some different perspective. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a proper trip, that, isn't it? I mean, Italy's lovely.
Yeah,
it's not out of your comfort zone, is it? Whereas this is proper. In 5 weeks, you're not going to feel like it's a holiday. It's
no, it won't
proper
be.
God.
I mean, they'll be like, what if we do stuff for 4 and 5 days? It'll be like, Melders, man, I'm not this sort of guy, but I just really need a beach day.
Yeah,
and he'll be like, yeah, me too. Let's get some beers,
right?
sit on there. I know I'm buzzing, mate. It will be good. Hopefully, it'll be good.
And you mentioned there a little bit about it being sort of taking some control.
Yeah.
And did you include going to uni itself in that then? Did you was that an important decision for you in relation to what's going on?
Again, I was really big part of my depression was stagnation. Right. The job I was sort of stuck in. And they were great. They were really, really good. But I sort of kept asking for a bone to be thrown and sort of was half promised one. And 2 of the years were through COVID and that, and obviously I didn't know. I don't know like the state of the business and it was like, yeah, it'll be good when it's this, it'll be good when it's that, and it just never happened to the point where I was like, well, I need to go and do something to give me some direction, different experience. I've always known I study English language and linguistics.
Where at?
It's at University of Brighton.
Brighton, I'm in.
Yeah, and I just knew that's something I've always been interested in.
Yeah.
My first girlfriend, we did a teaching English as a foreign language course and lived in Italy for half a year.
Oh, nice.
Until having to come back for everything, unfortunately. But yeah, it's something I've always been good at, always enjoyed, and I was like, well, why don't I just do that, man? Like education, self-improvement, it can never be a bad thing, can it?
And they're supporting you, and it's like you say, it's on your terms.
Yeah.
And it's lovely that you kind of go, but we still hear from you about where you're at and what you're doing. That's the beauty of that WhatsApp group, man. So I hope that continues. Obviously, when you're on your travels, there's no expectation, but man. Like, bother some photographs in, let us know where you are now and again.
Mate, happily. You don't want to like rub it in though, do you?
Mate,
do you know what I mean?
We're going to live vicariously through you, man.
Yeah, rate that.
No, absolutely.
All right, I can be that vehicle, yeah.
So, is there anything else, do you think, that we maybe haven't touched on enough? Or
I mean, other than, as I say, when I'm in it and I'm thinking, I need to say this, and then I go off on a tangent and I forget. So, I mean,
you might get that when you listen back, go, I should have said that. Yeah. Note it down, we'll do it again.
Lad, we'd be sat here for hours on end, mate.
I could talk to you for ages, man.
Trying to perfect it. I've been trying to think of the thing. There's something people say about ADHD, and I can't remember it. It's like we're blank perfectionists. I can't remember what it is. We really, really strive for perfection, but don't have the ability to create it. Nor does anyone. Perfection doesn't exist, does it? But which is why you often don't start things.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, I'm going on a tangent.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can do, and by all means, like I say,
Nah.
we'll do this again, man, for sure.
Okay, mate.
Because it sounds like this is all quite new to you.
Yeah.
And I think from getting to know some of the lads in the group about sort of talking about coming up to a diagnosis, that whole wait, for some of them it was long and it was hard and it was stressful, and then they get it, and then there's that kind of
grief.
Relief that it's happened,
yes.
But then and that some of things have made sense in their life, but then also that letting go of like an old pattern.
There's a great Mac Miller line, easily my second favourite artist. I nearly put it as my song. It's called The Question, and when I was before I had my attempt on my life, I was listening to that amongst many other songs every day, man. Just every lyric, he nailed it.
I wonder who the fuck I am. So I've been looking in the mirror and it still don't make no sense. I'm asking, what am I supposed to do? Done so much in my short lifetime, but I haven't done shit. I done flew around the whole world. First I shook a million hands, then I took a million pictures. But I'm a hostage in my own world. Yeah, my thoughts my own enemy. Got no time for these bitches. I got too much on my damn mind. So if I add some more stress, I just don't see how I'ma cope. I think they underestimate the grind. I do to bring this dough when I'm only 20 years old. I wonder why I sip this devil juice, cause I feel incredible. Problems I got several, thank God that none of that made it go. I've been blessed with much to be expected. What am I doing here?
But there's one in that I have now since to realise, alongside my alienation, is the ADHD stuff. Just one of the lyrics is, everybody seems to have it, but to me it seems they lack it. Yeah. And it's like, oh man, brother. Yeah, bloke's a genius. Gone before his time, man.
Oh man, he was only like, what?
26. I'm older now than he was, yeah. It'll be 5 years in September, mate.
But what he did in that time, can you imagine what he would do with a full life?
Oh,
jeez,
bless his heart, man.
Absolute
genius, mate.
I came across him, someone played me his little Tiny Desk concert.
Oh, isn't that just magnificent?
That was how I was introduced to him, and it was like,
5 years ago, mate.
That was just before he went, was it?
Literally just before he died. So that album that everything's off is Swimming, which just turned 5 on the 3rd of August. And he did that, I think it was early September, and then he died like a fortnight after. But yeah, that Tiny Desk is amazing, man. Well, Thundercat on the 6-string bass.
I'll link into that. And listen, we'll play. So, which song was it that you wanted? That you mentioned. What song was it?
The one out of the lyric of that. It's called The Question.
The Question. Well, we'll put it in, man, for sure. There's no rule that you can only have one.
Right.
Just people would go on forever if you say, bring some songs.
Yeah.
So I try and restrict them
to one. I listen to Mac Miller so
That's
much.
Cool, man. We'll have some Mac Miller for sure. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And they've got another couple of songs. We'll talk about them if that's okay. So your happy song is Diana Ross, I'm Coming Out.
Yeah.
It's one of the happiest songs of all time, surely.
It's good, isn't it?
Just played it at my sister's wedding at the weekend, so...
Men.
Yeah, what a tune.
Dude, man, it's my favourite intro of all time.
Yeah.
So good, like the cheeky little drum fills and that. Yeah, honestly, I struggled. There's so many candidates that I could have put on there.
Yeah. Is music a big part of your life then? You mentioned you do a bit of drumming, you do a bit of dancing, a bit of poetry. I assume you're a massive music fan.
Oh, lad, I just constantly have music on the back. One of my flatmates 4 or 5 years ago, he was like, and he wasn't saying it like he was annoyed or anything, but I was just cooking or whatever, and he was like, fuck's sake, you always have music on, don't you? I was like, yeah? But yeah, I listen to anything and everything, man. It's, somebody asked me the question, would you rather be blind or deaf? Didn't even think about it. I was like, blind.
Yeah.
And that's a heavy one. Sorry to just sort of flippantly put that in there. It's heavy, man, because I wouldn't want to be blind, but I couldn't live without music.
Of course not.
And I know deaf people can experience it through like the bass and such, but I was like, I just couldn't live without it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's massive for me. But yeah, I'm coming out, Diana Ross. I don't know, like I said, I could have put anything in there. I really thought about, there's a guy called, I always misremember his surname, Dele Somisi or Dele Sosimi.
Oh yeah.
Can't remember. But he played keyboard in Fela Kuti's, what they called, are they the Africa 500 or the Africa 70? Anyway, the band that played with Fela Kuti, just like big Nigerian Afro beats.
Oh yeah.
And mate, that is my jam. Like, I absolutely love it. I seen him once at the Crescent.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just trying to pull up a picture that my mate took of me. We went to Cross the Tracks in Brixton.
Oh yeah.
Very recently. It was kind of a letdown, I won't lie, which is a shame. But it's like a big jazz soul festival kind of thing. And Della Sisimi was there. And dude, I'm just grooving, man. Like, it's so good, mate. Like bongos and just,
Man.
Dude, all day
incredible.
I could listen to that. That's reminded me, actually, it was my birthday once, and a rugby lad who I play with, and I don't know how long he's been there, and obviously me being away from York, I don't play that long, but he's South African, and he just posted a photo of me on my birthday and put, happy birthday to the Yorkshire Lion with an African heart. I was like, yes, brother. And Fela Kuti live with Ginger Baker in Berlin. If you haven't listened to that album, check it out, man. Sensational. But yeah, so I went with I'm Coming Out, Diana Ross, because it is upbeat. And for me, it sort of has, I guess, since everything I've been through, yada yada, I know I keep saying it, but I guess that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Yeah. It's almost that reincarnation. For me, I get that from it. I know she doesn't necessarily mean that. Yeah. Well, maybe she does. You don't know, do you? Yeah. But like, I'm coming out. Like Andy Dufresne climbing through 500 yards of foul-smelling shit. I'm coming out. Like, I'm on the other side, man. Life's for living.
Man. Oh, that's
Let's
so
go
good.
get it.
That's
and
so
yeah,
good.
it's just my favourite
intro
tune. Of all time.
And I'm pretty sure, because I think it was Sheik who wrote it for, I think.
Is that right?
I think so.
Unsurprising.
He's written all sorts, hasn't he, for everyone.
Yeah.
But I remember, obviously, it's become like a massive gay anthem. And I think...
Oh, right. Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Duh. Well done, Leo.
I'm sure it was like written... Because obviously she then uses it to come out to open her sets.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that it was written. I don't know if it was written as a gay anthem. I need to look that up.
Oh,
but
right.
of course, it's become this huge, incredible song of like
celebration
and inclusivity of love, and you know, it's got so many reasons to be such a brilliant tune, and such a happy song. So I'm really glad you've chosen that one.
Clash,
mate. I love it.
Like I say, so many candidates, which is nice.
Of course
it
is. Yeah. Nice. And look, you know, maybe I should start with the sad song and move into happy.
Oof.
Because the sad song that you've chosen is about as heavy as it gets. You know, I mean, the Cure, the same Deep Water as You.
Yeah.
I listened to it just before we met, to kind of get my head in it.
Oh,
and it's like, oh God, man. It's deep, and the lyrics are really. It's powerful, man.
Yeah, man.
And knowing what you've been through and stuff like that, I assume that this has been a heavy song for you to have as an important song.
I'll listen to it hundreds of times. Yeah, well, they're my favourite band, as I say, closely followed by Mac Miller. But yeah, and that's my favourite album of all time, man.
Yeah.
Pro tip: don't listen to it in the gym. Trying to blast out your deadlift PB and you're just like in tears. But yeah, Disintegration, and the titular track, actually, I nearly put on there, because that used to be my favourite song of all time, but The Same Deep Water As You is now my favourite song. To be fair, every song on that album at some point has been my favourite song of all time.
Yeah.
But Same Deep Water As You just always takes the spot.
Kiss me goodbye. Pushing out, oh I see. Can't you see I try? Swimming
I don't know, man. For me, I always struggle to listen to lyrics, and I do know all the lyrics in that song. I guess it's about a breakup and stuff, which is poignant, but that's not the reason why I love it. It's just like you say, the broody music, the big like bassy riff, just really, really resonates with me. And the thunder at the beginning and the rain throughout, it's just, I can't put it into words. It just speaks to me, man.
An epic piece of music.
Right there. And the drumming is just class. I love it. Taught myself to play it.
Yeah. Were you a fan of The Cure before you were a drummer then, or was that something that
I
came
was
because of the
actually.
drumming?
I was.
That's cool.
Yeah. But they do have some of my favourite drumming bits. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing everything that you have. Like, I'm blown away. Like I mentioned, it sounds like you've had more in the last couple of years, especially as you're about to go off for 5 weeks to South America, than most people have to deal with.
Oh, right. Well,
don't you think?
Well, I don't know, mate. Maybe I need to recognise that more, yeah.
And I'm sorry for your losses.
Nah, man, it's life, innit? Thank you, though.
And I'm chuffed that you're on board, and I really appreciate what you've done today, man. I know there's going to be a lot of blokes. We get a lot of feedback. People listen to this, they get a lot from it, and this is going to be a really good conversation.
Oh, sweet. Well, thanks for allowing me the space, man. Couldn't have done it without you.
I hope we get to do this again.
Yeah, same. I'm down for that.
And I hope you have a sick time travelling, man. It's going to be immense.
Yeah, it'll be all right, won't it?
I look forward to hearing more about it. And until next time, Leo.
Yeah, sounds good.
Take care, brother.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, listeners.
Peace, man.
All love. Peace out.
Thank you, Leo. What a story. What a guy. Have you got something to get off your chest? Maybe you're living with a mental health challenge. Maybe you've got a story to tell. We're here for it. Get in touch. Don't forget to give us a like and a share. And whatever you do, keep talking.